It is very clear from this hadith that when Dajjal was released into the world, he would have to be geographically located on that island. And it would be from that island that he would launch his effort to impersonate the Messiah by liberating the Holy Land of non-Jewish rule, etc. Which island was it? The island is Britain. Our view is that the island referred to in the hadith was Britain. The evidence that supports our claim is truly startling. Consider the following. In 1917, the government of the island of Britain issued the Balfour Declaration, in which it announced to a startled world the intention of the British government to support the establishment of a Jewish national home in the Holy Land. Then in August 1917, it was a British army led by General Allenby, which defeated the Turkish army and liberated the Holy Land of Muslim rule. From 1919 to 1948, Britain ruled over the Holy Land on the basis of a mandate conferred by the League of Nations. During this period of time, the world witnessed the massive emigration of European Jews to the Holy Land, the tremendous German hatred of the Jews for their betrayal in the First World War. The German Jews made a deal with Britain that they would get USA to enter the war in support of Britain if Britain, in turn, would promise to give them the Holy Land when the war was won. And the resultant rise of Hitler led to such wholesale persecution of the Jews as dramatically increased the Jewish emigration from Europe to the Holy Land. Finally, in 1948, Britain acted as the midwife for the baby to be born. That is, for the declaration of independence of the State of Israel. We may note, in addition, that the island of Britain is located across the Mediterranean Sea, about 1 month's journey from the Arab world. It is also important to note that the British have excelled in spying and espionage. Sherlock Holmes and James Bond movies are the fictional equivalent to Lawrence of Arabia. It is quite possible that there would still be some who would disagree with our view, in which we have identified Britain as the island mentioned in the hadith. To such people we respond very respectfully, with the invitation to kindly correct us. In order to do so, they must, themselves, identify the island and provide the evidence that validates their claim and invalidates ours. And so, we have concluded that the hadith has informed us that when Dajjal was released on earth, and he commenced his mission of impersonating the Messiah in a day, that was like a year. It was from the island of Britain that he did so. We have also noticed that during this period of time Britain functioned as the ruling state of the world. Secondly, we notice that when it was the ruling state of the world, Britain exercised control over the money of the world. This was done through the Bank of England. Indeed, London was the financial capital of the world. But we then notice that there was a moment in time when, in a strange and mysterious way, Britain ceased to be the ruling state in the world and was replaced by USA. This process of change appears to have commenced with one war, that is, the First World War, and ended with another, that is, the Second World War. Our view is that the period between the First and Second World Wars witnessed the movement of Dajjal from a day that was like a year to a day that was like a month. It is very important that we observe that process of change with great insight, since it provides us with the clues with which to recognize that moment in time when Dajjal would move from a day that is like a month to a day that is like a week. An act of terrorism in the summer of 1914 in the city of Sarajevo resulted in the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary. The perpetrator was a Serb, but the footprints that were left led to Russia. Whoever planned the assassination and left those footprints leading to Russia wanted Austria-Hungary to declare war on Russia. The real target of the assassination was not Russia, but the ally of Russia, namely Britain. The Ottoman Islamic State was the other target. It had to be destroyed, and Britain had to do the job of destruction. When Austria-Hungary declared war on Russia, Britain and France promptly entered the war in support of Russia, and Germany responded by entering the war in support of Austria-Hungary. The plan behind the event of the assassination was to so weaken the British economy through war that Britain would eventually lose its status as the ruling state in the world and would be replaced by another state. The perpetrators of the act of terrorism were so devilishly cunning that they were able to simultaneously attack the Ottoman Islamic Empire. That state still constituted a formidable obstacle to the liberation of the Holy Land, the return of the Jews to the Holy Land, and the restoration of the State of Israel. The best possible way of removing that obstacle was war. And so, the Ottoman Islamic Empire was forced, by way of skillful internal intrigue, to enter the war in support of Germany. Britain was then eventually used for attacking and destroying not only the Ottoman Islamic State, but also the Islamic Caliphate. But from 1914 to 1916, the war was a disaster for Britain. Firstly, German submarines wrested from Britain control over the seas. Secondly, Germany occupied France and installed a pro-German government in Paris. Thirdly, Russian troops were deserting and retreating. And finally, by 1916, Britain was in such dire straits that she was marooned and was threatened by starvation. Then came dramatic change in 1916. The Jews approached the British government and offered to get USA to enter the war in support of Britain if Britain would, as a quid pro quo, promise to give the Holy Land to the Jews at the end of the war. Britain accepted the offer. The Jews then put their tremendous propaganda machinery in USA to work and pulled every possible string until they succeeded in getting USA to enter the war in 1916 in support of Britain. Britain responded 1 year later by issuing the Balfour Declaration. 1916 also marked the successful conclusion of excellent espionage by British spies in the Arabian Peninsula. Britain succeeded in achieving two very important objectives, both of which constituted strategic blows delivered against the Ottoman Islamic State. The first was the conclusion of a treaty of mutual assistance and benevolent neutrality between Britain and Abdul Aziz ibn Saud, then ruling over Riyadh. The cost to Britain was a mere £5,000 a month that Abdul Aziz would receive from the British Treasury. The second was the success in inducing Sharif Hussain, the Ottoman appointed Sharif of Makkah and the Hejaz, to rebel against the Ottoman Caliph and declare his independence. The cost to Britain was a princely sum of £7 million. And so 1916 changed the course of the war, and eventually delivered victory to the USA, Britain, and the Jews. Not only was Germany defeated, but more importantly, the Ottoman Islamic State was dismembered, and in its place emerged the secular state of Turkey. Indeed, the secular leadership of Turkey promptly negotiated an offensive and defensive alliance with the same Britain that had played the leading role in the dismemberment of the Ottoman Islamic State. But Britain was so devastated by the war that the USA replaced Britain as the ruling state in the world. This was confirmed during the period between the two world wars, and then after the Second World War. For example, during the Second World War, it was an American general, Dwight Eisenhower, who led the Allied troops. Then in 1944, the Bretton Woods Conference on the establishment of a new international monetary system delivered a convincing statement on Britain's new diminished status when it selected the US dollar as the new international currency replacing the sterling pound. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank replaced the Bank of England as the premier financial institutions in the world. And Washington replaced London as the financial capital of the world, thus controlling the money of the world. After the war was over, it was USA that had to rebuild the British and European economies through the Marshall Plan. In the 1956 Suez Crisis, and again in the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1963, USA convincingly demonstrated its new status as the ruling state in the world. In the same way that Britain, the ruling state in the world, was strangely obsessed with the Holy Land. For example, the Balfour Declaration and the British people were themselves incapable of explaining the strange obsession, so too was the new ruling state, USA, strangely obsessed with the Holy Land. And so too were the American people themselves incapable of explaining the strange obsession. For example, USA was the first state in the world to recognize the new state of Israel, when it declared its independence in 1948. Since then, USA has acted as the chief patron of Israel through thick and through thin. USA has provided Israel with massive financial, economic, and military aid. In fact, the total aid to Israel almost exceeds the total US aid to the rest of the world. Some of the US aid has gone to Israel through the US government, but a substantial amount of aid has also gone from USA to Israel through Jews who are resident in USA. Insofar as military aid is concerned, some has gone through the front door, and some through the back door. The case of Jonathan Pollard, who passed on to Israel's nuclear secrets, is the most well known. As a consequence, Israel became a nuclear and a thermonuclear power on par with the nuclear states in the world. Our conclusion is that Dajjal is geographically located in USA. During that stage of his life on earth, when his day is like a month. We go on to argue in this book that we are now located at a moment in time when Dajjal is about to move to that stage of his life on earth, when his day would be like a week, which would witness USA being replaced by Israel as the ruling state in the world. In fact, we have located the September 11th attack on USA as the opening round of the process through which this change in ruling states would be accomplished. By virtue of the fact that the Qur'an declared of itself that it explains all things, Qur'an, El-Nahl, 16:89, it is capable of explaining this most amazing of events ever witnessed in the religious history of mankind, that is, the restoration of the state of Israel in the Holy Land, almost 2,000 years after it was destroyed by Allah Most High. Our purpose in turning to the Qur'an to locate that explanation is to direct attention to that divine guidance, which will assist the Muslim people around the world to respond appropriately to the strange events unfolding in the Holy Land. Before we return to an examination of this most ominous of divine prophecies that has already been fulfilled, that is, that Allah Most High will bring the Jewish people back to the Holy Land in the end time, it is necessary for us to address the subject of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, who is the greatest hoax the world has ever known. In response to the prophecy of the return of the Messiah, Jerusalem in the Qur'an, by Imran N. Hossein, Part 1, Chapter 9, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, a false Messiah. Narrated Abu Huraira, Allah's apostle said, "By him in whose hands is my soul, surely Jesus, the son of Mary, will soon descend amongst you, and will judge mankind justly as a just ruler. He will break the cross and kill the pigs, and there will be no jizya. Money will be in abundance so that nobody will accept it, and a single prostration to Allah in prayer will be better than the whole world and whatever is in it." Abu Huraira added, "If you wish, you can recite this verse of the Holy Book. And there is none of the people of the scriptures, Jews and Christians, but must believe in him, Jesus, before his death. And on the day of judgment he will be a witness against them." Qur'an, Al-Nisa, 4-159, Sahih Bukhari. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was a Punjabi Muslim who lived in the town of Kadian in India at the beginning of the 20th century. He died just about the time of the commencement of the First World War. He did not live to see the transfer of power from one ruling state in the world, Britain, to another, USA, that occurred during the First World War. Nor did he live to see the return of the Jews to the Holy Land and the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. He also has not lived to see what we are about to witness, that is, the transfer of power from USA to another ruling state, the Jewish state of Israel. This book anticipates that such will occur within the next 5 to 10 years, or even sooner. Mirza startled the world when he made a number of claims pertaining to the prophecy of the return of the Messiah. He established the Ahmadiyya movement in India, and it promptly embarked upon an extraordinary effort in the Western world to preach and to convert European people to Ahmadiyya. But the movement also took pains to devote special attention to African American Muslims of the Nation of Islam, who were led by Elijah Muhammad. As a consequence, Mirza has succeeded in influencing African American Muslims, who are today led by Imam Warithdin Muhammad. Update: announced giving up his leadership post in September 2003, or by Louis Farrakhan in respect of the subject of the return of the Messiah. For this reason, it became necessary for us to devote a chapter to the claims of Mirza. As the historical process unfolds in this last stage of history, it should become increasingly clear to his followers as well as to those who were influenced by his teachings that the following claims of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of India were quite false. He is the Imam al-Mahdi who will be the leader of the Muslims at the time when the Messiah returns. The prophecy pertaining to the return of the Messiah was fulfilled in him. He is a divinely appointed prophet. We hope that Ahmadis will respond to our invitation, which we hereby extend, to use the Qur'an and a hadith to explain the above-mentioned events which have occurred after the death of Mirza, and in particular the return of the Jewish people to the Holy Land and establishment of the State of Israel. If they do so, we are sure that they will discover a new understanding of the subjects of Dajjal, the false Messiah, Gog and Magog, Imam al-Mahdi, and the return of the Messiah Jesus, the son of Mary, an understanding quite different from that which they received from Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. This book was written to help Ahmadis as they seek that Quranic explanation for the strangest event ever to have occurred in the religious history of mankind.